Today, we're going to head to the very top of the world because up there, something is happening and it's happening way faster than anyone ever predicted. The Arctic, well, it's sending a really clear, really urgent signal about the health of our planet. So let's get right into it. And that right there, that is the whole point. What's unfolding in these vast frozen landscapes, it isn't just some far-off regional issue. No way. Think of it as a preview, a warning of the kind of rapid, destabilizing change that could affect all of us, the entire globe in the years to come. You see, as our climate accelerates its changes, it's creating what some people are calling mutant weather. It's unpredictable, it's dangerous, it's extreme. And nowhere is this new reality more obvious than in the Arctic. So we're going to look at the science for sure, but maybe more importantly, we're going to hear from the people who are actually living through this transformation right now. Okay, so to really understand what's happening, you need to know this term, the cryosphere. The easiest way to think about it is like it's Earth's air conditioning system. All this ice and snow reflects the sun's energy back out into space, and that's what keeps the whole planet cool. The problem? That refrigerator is breaking down. But you know, this isn't just some abstract science problem. For the people in the Arctic, this is their daily reality. So let's look at two very different groups whose lives are completely, fundamentally tied to that ice. What's so fascinating here is the contrast. On one side, you have these modern gold miners. For them, the frozen sea is basically a temporary platform, a work site. The risk is sudden. It's immediate, you lose a piece of equipment, you get into a dangerous spot. But on the other side, you have the indigenous Inupiat people. For them, the ice is, well, it's everything. It's their highway, it's their hunting ground, it's the protective barrier for their homes. The risk they're facing is the slow-motion disappearance of their entire way of life. And listen, this is an ancient history we're talking about. People who are alive today, they remember a completely different Arctic. The elders, they talk about sea ice that was literally twice as thick as it is now. They remember winters that were long, cold, and predictable, not shocking them with rain in the middle of January. That thick, reliable ice, it used to act like a wall, protecting their coastline from these brutal ocean storms. And now, that wall is just gone. This quote from Dennis Davis up in Shishmaref, Alaska, man, it just really hits home. I mean, can you imagine watching the very ground your home is built on, the land your ancestors have lived on for generations, just literally crumble into the sea? It's a profound, life-altering thing to witness. So the sea ice is vanishing. That's one thing. But the problem goes even deeper. I mean, it's happening to the land itself. Let's dig into the science of this thaw. Right, so the ground in so much of the Arctic is held together by this stuff called permafrost, basically permanently frozen soil. Scientists have this great term for it. They call it the landscape glue. But that glue is melting. And as it thaws, the ground just collapses, creating these bizarre, really unsettling landscapes. You get trees tilting over at these wild angles in what people call drunken forests, and the ground itself just sinks into these deep pits. And it's not just the people who live there who are worried. Even the scientists who study this stuff for a living are just stunned. The expected change, of course, but the sheer speed at which all this is happening has outpaced even their most alarming predictions from just a few years back. And that kind of speed, that unprecedented rate of change, it brings with it all sorts of unpredictable dangers. Which brings us back to those gold miners and this absolutely dramatic story of a rescue mission on disintegrating ice. Okay, so picture this. It's March 2019. It should have been totally safe. The official end of the ice mining season was still weeks away. But then a sudden, totally unseasonable warm spell hits, and John Culp's very expensive dredging equipment is just sitting out there on the frozen sea. And then he gets the call. In just a few hours, the solid ice platform that his entire operation was sitting on had shattered. His whole life's work was now just drifting out into the Bering Sea on a broken piece of ice. So their attempt to save their equipment, well, that quickly turned into a fight for their own lives. The ice and the current were just too powerful. They ended up trapped as the ocean just carried them 4 miles out from shore. As darkness fell and the temperatures plummeted, they were locked in. It was a losing battle, plain and simple. A Coast Guard helicopter eventually spotted them and lifted them to safety, but they had to leave everything behind, forced to just watch as all their equipment, their entire livelihood, floated away into the dark. That crazy rescue is a perfect snapshot of this new, unpredictable Arctic. But the consequences of this melt, they extend so far beyond the shoreline. And this, right here, is where the Arctic's problem becomes everyone's problem. So remember that thawing permafrost we were just talking about? Well, it contains these vast amounts of trapped organic material. As it thaws, that material starts to decompose and it releases methane, a greenhouse gas that's over 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide. This release of methane causes more warming, which, you guessed it, thaws more permafrost, which releases even more methane. It's a vicious cycle. It's a positive feedback loop that just feeds on itself. And this is why it's so dangerous. Scientists call this the sleeping giant that's lurking just beneath the Arctic tundra. The big fear is that a massive sudden release of all this methane, what some people have called a methane bomb, could rapidly accelerate global warming in a way that just spirals completely out of our control. And it's not just the permafrost. Just look at this data. The scale of ice loss from land is just staggering. Greenland and Antarctica are each losing hundreds of billions of tons of ice every single year. And what's really striking is Alaska. Its glaciers are melting so fast that they are now one of the single largest contributors to sea level rise in the entire world. So here's the crucial point. Where does all that water go? It doesn't just disappear. When land ice melts, it flows directly into the ocean. And this is a primary driver of global sea level rise, which threatens coastal communities all over the world, from Miami to Mumbai. What happens in the Arctic does not stay in the Arctic. And that brings us to the ultimate cost of this transformation. Because beyond the science, beyond the global implications, there is an irreversible human loss that's happening right now. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? For the Inupiat and other indigenous peoples of the North, their culture, their identity, their very survival, it's all woven into the land and the ice. When that land disappears, a piece of who they are disappears right along with it. And the consequences are just devastatingly practical. You have entire communities grappling with the impossible decision to just move. Hunting grounds that have sustained them for thousands of years are vanishing. Salmon are literally dying of heat-induced heart attacks in rivers that are getting too warm. The entire ecosystem is being turned upside down, and with it, a whole wealth of generational knowledge is at risk of being lost forever. You know, in the end, it really all comes down to this one simple, powerful question, voiced by one of the elders. He asks, as a parent, what kind of a future are we giving those children? The changes that are happening in the Arctic, they force all of us to confront that very same question and to really think about what legacy we're going to leave behind on this rapidly changing planet.